Hello. Happy 4th of July. Happy day, happy life, happy journey. How good it is. Welcome, everyone. Great to be here on this 4th of July. Wow. What a day. The 4th of July is a day of celebration and, and a day of remembrance. So this is what I kind of wanted to talk about today, but I'm just going to be so grateful in this moment to be able to be home. I'm home in Los Angeles, and hey, Maria, home in LA, back from Costa Rica. I was down there for almost 5 months, and it was amazing. It was amazing to be there, and it's amazing to be here. And what an interesting place and time to be this holiday of the 4th of July. So much is on my mind to share with you today regarding the 4th of July. And the thought came to me first. The thought was keep your head to the sky, right? The old Earth, Wind, and Fire. Keep your head to the sky, right? And then the thought came, and your feet on the ground. Like that's what's required now, is that we keep ourselves lifted in high consciousness and yet are real about what's going on. Hey, Colette, great to see you. And then the other thought of what today's talk could be about was freedom in the groove, right? This day is the 4th of July, the day that we in the United States celebrate independence. And yet I am reminded that it is not independence for everyone. There was a beautiful speech by Frederick Douglass. I want to pull it up. He was asked to speak in the 1800s on freedom. Hey, Jessica, great to see you. And Kelly, hello from the UK. So we're talking about freedom. We're talking about the celebration of the independence of the United States and what that really means in the midst of everything that's been going on. And so I want to share with you the first few lines of Frederick Douglass's speech. He gave on the 4th of July. He was asked to speak 168 years ago. 168 years ago, he gave this speech about what it is to be free. And I want to share it with you. Let me see if I can just... Here he says, this is Frederick Douglass. Now, if you don't know who Frederick Douglass he was a freed slave during this time in American history. It was very rare for anyone of African descent to be educated, and he was highly educated and gained his freedom and then became a major influence in the United States and led, was a public leader, brilliant orator. And he was asked to speak on the 4th of July, and here's what he said. Fellow citizens, I shall not presume to dwell at length on the associations that cluster about this day. This simple story of it is that 76 years ago, the people of this country were British subjects. Oppression makes a wise man mad. Your fathers were wise men, and if they did not go mad, they became restive under this treatment. With brave men, there is always a remedy for oppression. They succeed, and today you reap the fruits of their success. The freedom gained is yours, and you, therefore, may properly celebrate this anniversary. Fellow citizens, pardon me. Allow me to ask why I am called upon to speak here today. What have I or those I represent to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed to your fathers is shared by you, not by me. The sunlight that brought life and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You rejoice, I must mourn. Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wails of millions. At a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument, is needed. Oh, had I the ability and could reach the nation's ear, I would today pour out a fiery stream of biting ridicule, blasting reproach, withering sarcasm, and stern rebuke. For it is not light that is needed, but fire. It is not the gentle shower, but thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, the earthquake. The feeling of the nation must be quickened. The conscience of the nation must be aroused. The propriety of the nation must be startled. The speech goes on. It's an amazing speech, a miraculous rhetorical flourish. But more than rhetoric, he's speaking of this divide that 178 years ago, the freed men and women of this nation felt, this great chasm. And today we must look and see that we must celebrate freedom for all. Freedom for all. Independence. What is freedom? The dictionary defines freedom as the power or right to act or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. I would add something to that definition. I would say that freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want whenever you want, but that freedom, spiritual freedom, real freedom, is amplified within structure, within some constraints, within some, well, I think the best way to describe it is structure, right? Not constraint in the sense of keeping us from, girdling us, but rather I find, and I think it's bared out in all sorts of examples, that we are more free when we have some structure to support us in the intention of that freedom, right? So if the intention of our freedom is freedom, justice, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all, irrespective of the color of the skin, their gender identification. These are the principles enshrined within the Constitution, which have to date not been equally distributed to all. So we must bring our spiritual freedom first within, so that without we can experience that. Freedom and liberation for all. At this time, we see such division worldwide. And the division seems to thunder this chasm between us. But I would say that we must first anchor ourselves in spiritual principle. And that spiritual principle is that God is good, that God and good are synonymous. In fact, there is no distinction between good and God. Now we can say, well, how could you say that with all this stuff that's going on in the world? There's lots of evil in the world. There's lots of suppression and lots of nefarious people acting without others' best interest at heart, seeking only to gain for themselves. Well, we must anchor into the principle that life is fundamentally rock bottom, without a doubt, never contradicting itself, good. And here's how we know that. That there is no energy known in the universe that can destroy itself. The first law of thermodynamics is energy is neither created nor destroyed. The very energy of life cannot be destroyed. It can be transferred or conveyed into different areas or different forms, but it cannot be destroyed. So that means that the eternal energy that exists, that we might call the presence, we might call the divine intelligence, the one mind, the all in all, the universal presence, cannot destroy itself. It cannot contradict itself. It cannot back up over itself. It can't go against itself. Therefore, we can say that the fundamental energy of the universe is good, and that God and good are synonymous. So in the midst of this day of the chasm of freedom, the chasm between those who are free, who can enjoy this freedom and all the fruits and benefits of the idea of prosperity and liberty and justice for all, we must also remember those of our brothers and sisters who do not have that experience. And in the midst of seeing that dichotomy, in the midst of seeing that distinction, that division, we see wholeness. We see the truth that energy cannot destroy itself. Therefore, energy is good. Therefore, the presence of God is good. It is always unfolding and expanding and progressing for its best benefit, not to destroy itself, but to amplify and magnify itself. That is a generous expression, a generating expression. We can say it's generous. It generates. Therefore, it can't be bad. It must be good. That is the truth. So in the midst of division, in the midst of all of this that we see, we must anchor ourselves in a spiritual truth that says that fundamentally life is good, no matter what the appearances are, and we must claim that goodness for ourselves. It cannot exist without us, for it requires a receiver. Electricity must have an outlet. Electricity exists. We didn't invent it. We capture it. We generate it. But it is there. It is there. It exists. It's existed throughout time. Electricity. Now we can harness it. We can capture it. We can use it for a definite advantage. It can be used for good or for bad. But it can be harnessed. And that is the same as the nature of God. The nature of this eternal energy requires us to claim it. It requires us to be a channel for it, to be an outlet for it to express. How do we do that? We do that through our spiritual practices. That's freedom in the groove. That's real freedom. Isn't freedom unrestrained, unrestricted. Freedom is contained within a structure. Within the structures of our spiritual practice. Meditation. Did I say meditation? Meditation. Don't tell me, I can't meditate. My mind, I can't settle myself down. Wrong answer. Not accepting that answer. We can do it. And the fact, and it doesn't matter whether you settle your mind down or not. Some of my best meditations are my monkey mind meditations. Why? Because I have to realize that there's no such thing as a bad meditation. So give up your expectations that you're going to drop into some blissful state and reach the eternal, verge on the metaphysic. That's a cool thing if you can do it. But just sitting quietly and letting your mind purge, that's all that is required. That's all that is required. Hey, everybody, I'm going to say hi. We see Deanna, hello. Dorota, mi hermana, Wendy, hello, Grace, thank you. So we see the division that's existing in our society, in our culture right now, everywhere in the world. It's people are showing up going, I'm not free. I'm not feeling it. In fact, I'm kind of repressed right now. And in the midst of that, we know that the fundamental truth of God and goodness is expressing itself everywhere. And it must, in order for it to be realized, we have to be the receiver. We have to be the channel for it. And we are the channel for it when we realize our true freedom is in the groove. Our true freedom is in the structure. Here, dig this. Jazz, musicians, improvisation, right? Improving. Infinite possibilities exist. Now, they have to study. They have to know music theory. They have to know a time signature. They have to know a key signature. They got to know what time are we in? Are we in 3/4, 4/4, 2/5? What is it? Are we in what key? E flat, B flat, E major, E minor, whatever it is. What key are we in? Once we have those structural pieces, infinite possibilities exist within that structure. Think about chess, right? Finite space. You've got 36 squares, right? but infinite possibilities exist within that finite space. So real freedom, spiritual freedom, exists within the groove. Freedom in the groove, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Freedom exists within structure. So we must utilize our spiritual structures: meditation, affirmative prayer, community, fellowship, sacred service. How can I serve today? Who's in need today? Let me be of service. Biggest thing we can do to open up our spiritual channel. When we are in service, Spirit moves. Spirit moves, and it opens us up, and it gets us out of ourselves. So, freedom and liberation for all. First, right here, baby. It's in me, and it's in you, and it's to us doing our work. You're doing it right now. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for checking this out. If you're listening to it later or you're listening to it live, thank you, because you've taken some time to watch something uplifting, hopefully. Hopefully it's uplifting. And you have made a declaration that you're interested in something that is beneficial, and you're interested in being beneficial. You're interested in being a beneficial presence on this planet, in your space. So yes, Wendy, freedom is within. There's a great saying, a great story about a prisoner. One prisoner looks through the window and sees the bars, and the other prisoner looks through the window and sees the stars. Same prison. What are we seeing? Same prison. What are we seeing? What do we choose to bring our spiritual structures to bear, and to bring them to bear on our earthly interactions? So first I clean up myself, and then I'm going to see my family next week. And we have differing political and religious perceptions, very different. And I'm going to take this idea of freedom within to my family. Not to preach to them, not to say anything, but just to keep that within me, so that when I am speaking to them, I'm hearing and listening to the wholeness behind their words, no matter how different their opinions are from me. Because here's the truth. If I want to be free, I feel something. For example, one of my sisters is a fundamentalist Christian or evangelical Christian, and sometimes just the way she talks, I feel very judged, right? And I'm thinking, I feel judged, but then I realized, well, if I'm feeling judged, I'm probably judging her. Like, how dare she say that to me? I feel judged. Right? So you can't escape it. I'm judging her by feeling judged by her. How do I escape that? How do I move out? Not escape it, but how do I move out of that rat race, out of that hamster wheel? You just step off. I just step off, and I'm going to listen. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to be curious. I'm going to seek to understand rather than be understood. Bring those principles of freedom and liberation from within, because I don't have anything to prove to her. I don't have to persuade her. I don't have to convince her that I'm right. That, she sees God as a person in the sky, and I see God as something closer to what's behind me here, right? But who knows? How about listening? How about finding out? How about being curious? That's what I'm saying to myself. I'm going to be curious. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to seek to understand rather than be understood. This is what we need to bring out into our daily conversations with people, and not just the ones that agree with us. The algorithms on Facebook and Instagram, and even on our Google web searches, leads us to agreement reality. It leads us only to the things that we are already agreeing with, and it keeps us in this bubble. We got to break out of that bubble if we're going to bring this nation together, if we're going to bring this world together. We've got to step out off the hamster wheel, off the treadmill, keep our head to the sky and our feet on the ground. We know that it's good. Always good is expressing. It can't be anything other, but that goodness requires an outlet, and we've got to be the outlet, and we got to bring it every conversation, every interaction with ourselves and with others. Because the judgment that I have of others is only a minuscule amount compared to the judgment I have for myself. Thank you, Delia, for this beautiful statement. And we need your energy too, sister. Yes. So that's it. That's what I'm talking about. Can I bring the peace to myself through my spiritual practices, through the structures that provide freedom for me, freedom in the groove, keep my head to the sky. Thank you, Earth, Wind, and Fire. What a brilliant, spiritual, soulful group of people. Keep my head to the sky and my feet on the ground. Keep grounded, and yet only see the good, because I know the spiritual principle is that God is good, period. And it's always expressing, and then can I be an outlet for it? How about my interaction with my sister? How about my interaction with my neighbor, who was kind of judging me because I forgot to put my mask on, because, I'm not used to that right now. And so just bring it. Bring the love. Bring the joy. Bring the curiosity. Bring the inquisitiveness. Seek to understand rather than be understood, no matter how abhorrent another opinion might be. Because fundamentally, in every political conversation that I've had recently, I've noticed this about myself. One, there's an underlying indignant, like, what? How could you possibly believe that? You're crazy, right? I don't say that, but really, if I get really honest with myself, that's what I'm thinking. Who the is thinking that? How absolutely head up the butt can you be to think like that? Well, trust and believe that energy is felt when I speak to those people, if I'm really walking like that. The other thing that's really true that I had to really get honest with myself about was I really just want them to think like I do, right? Like if I'm expressing my political opinion about something, what I really, really wanted at the end of the conversation was for the other person who had a different opinion from me to say, you know what? You're right. I was completely wrong and you were completely right. And now I think just like you. Then the world would be a much better place, right? That's really embarrassing to admit, but that was what was underneath my thinking. So let's just be real with ourselves first and get those thoughts out of our energetic field, right? Like, I don't need to persuade my sister to believe anything about God, or I don't need to persuade my brother to believe anything about police force or the inherent injustice and systemic racism that exists in this country, because there's a whole group of people that don't think that. Now, I could just group those people together and say they're up in the head, and if they can't see it, they're blind. So I'm just going to be over here with these people that think the way I do, and everything will be cool. And then eventually everyone will think like us, right? Wrong. Martin Luther King said it the best. He said a lot of things the best. He said, if we are victorious, the people that we are fighting against will be our neighbors. That's it. So I can't be righteous. I can't be righteous with my family. I can't be righteous with others that have a differing opinion than me and just think, how fucking ludicrous are you for thinking that? I've got to be curious. I've got to listen. I've got to express the truth. And remember this at the founding of the United States. I think it was Thomas Paine, but I'm actually not sure. I'm embarrassed to say that. I'm not sure, but I believe it was Thomas Paine who said, I disagree with you completely, but I'll defend to the death your right to state your opinion. That's how we have to believe. I will disagree with what happened in South Dakota last night, but I'll defend his right to do that. We must come to a place of true compassion and understanding. And remember Mother Teresa's words when she was asked to march in an anti-war rally, and she wouldn't do it. She said, I will not march against anything, but I'll march in a peace rally. If you're for peace, I'll be for something, but I won't be against something. So let's bring that into our awareness on this 4th of July, this day of freedom and liberation for some, and hold in our awareness freedom and liberation for all. Let's keep our heads in the sky and our feet on the ground. Let's know that freedom is in the groove. Freedom is in the structures that we create for ourselves that keep us lifted in high consciousness, that keep our heads lifted to the sky. And let's have interactions with individuals and others and with ourselves that are loving and understanding. Let's seek to understand rather than to be understood. Let's seek to allow others the freedom that we so richly desire. And in that, the universe is reflective. It's like a mirror. When we stand in front of a mirror, first of all, the image comes back immediately, right? I stand in front of the mirror, bam, image comes back. I don't have to pray to it. I don't have to convince it. I don't have to persuade it. I don't have to cajole it. It just is returned to me automatically. That's the nature of the universe. It is reflective. And here's the other thing about the mirror. It's reflecting back exactly what I'm putting in. Sometimes I put in a little too much right around down in here. You know what I'm saying? So, so it's giving back exactly what I'm putting in. And it reflects back immediately, automatically, without persuasion. That's the nature of the universe. It is like a mirror. So as we're having our conversations with people, let's have conversations. Let's not say, oh, let's not talk about politics or religion. That's not what democracy is predicated on. Democracy is based on the fact that we speak the truth to each other and listen to each other. Let's do that. And allow people to have other opinions without having to persuade them or cajole them. Give them the freedom that we want for all. Give them the respect that we want. And watch the reflective nature of the universe automatically work in our favor. Okay, I think that's it. Happy 4th of July. Happy day of freedom and liberation. We hold in our awareness a kind and just global society that works for the best and highest individual and collective good. That's what we hold in our awareness. That's what we hold for everyone. 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 Every single last one. All right. Peace and blessings. Happy day, happy life, happy journey. Thank you all so much for joining.